Chapter 19. Arthur Nance looked around the country club parking lot, crowded with cars, minivans, and SUVs, old and new, battered and gleaming, cheap and priceless. Squinting into the late afternoon sun, the cars reflected the red-tinged light off windshields and bumpers and mirrors and doorknobs like a pack of bicyclists caught in a searchlight late at night on a deserted road. "Well, Jason," he said impatiently, "do you recognize any of them?"
"No, Dr. Nance,"
answered his nerdy young assistant with the pocket protector and horn-rimmed glasses that he seemed to wear as a badge of honor.
"But I'm not a big car guy, you know that, and I haven't got all their cars in here yet, anyway."
He waved the sleek, brushed chrome, compact eye pack in Arthur Nance's face, as if Arthur could see that it was so light that he really couldn't have any cars in there yet. "Well, you'll have to work on that, because I really hate it when I have to leave a place I wouldn't have gone into if I'd known whose car was parked out front." "Okay, start on it tomorrow. Has it done by the Miller's pool party on Saturday?"
"Okay, Dr. Nance, will do. Want me to go inside now?"
"Yeah, you do that, Jason."
He wished he could smoke a cigarette while he waited for Jason to return, but the gravel-topped parking lot was just too public a place for one of Atlanta's top doctors to light up and hurt his image.
Who's being naive, Kay?
Which was of a trim, muscular, athletic medical genius who played a mean game of a racquetball with a golf disability of 2. He'd just have to wait until he got home, assuming he went home alone, which he rather doubted, because so many women wanted him, what with his near-perfect body, huge mansion, and astronomical salary, that he almost never went home alone unless he felt like it. Behind his back, stiletto heels clicked, but not sharply and intensely like they would on wood or marble, rather with a little sogginess to them. A sort of muffled slurping caused by their impacting asphalt that had gone soft and resilient in the hot Atlanta sun. He liked stiletto heels a lot, so he turned to see who was coming. It was Callie Archer, old Henry's widow. God, she was a looker, with those glossy black tresses, and fine hooters! She smiled and came toward him. Even though she was about 40, she still had an ass to die for. Although he was more of a leg and foot man himself. Which is why he preferred stiletto heels to pumps or running shoes.
"Hello, Arthur,"
she said saucily, laying a perfectly manicured hand on his arm in a way that promised interesting things to come.
"Is Jason inside, making sure it's safe for you to go in?"
"Yes," he exclaimed, studying the smooth white fingers tipped with crimson and filed to glossy perfection.
"Yes, it is."
He laughed because it was a joke between them, even though when you came right down to it, it didn't much amuse him when he wasn't with Callie. Arthur Nance had a very poor memory for faces, especially women's faces, because he almost never looked at their faces, especially if they were wearing open-toed shoes with stiletto heels and had bright red nail polish on their toenails like Callie was. He had a fantastic memory for bare boobs and naked apses, of course. But those weren't likely to be on display in the country club's party room, at least not so early in the evening. In fact, the only reason he recognized Callie was she'd been his patient for going on 20 years now. And after 20 years, it's hard not to recognize somebody unless the light's bad or they've got a new haircut or something.
He writes the way people talk!
So wherever he went, he took his assistant Jason with him. Because Jason not only had a photographic memory, he liked to look at women's faces. And besides, he had all their pictures in his Palm Pilot anyway, just in case. Callie squeezed his forearm and leaned so close to him that her big breasts brushed his bicep.
"How many are we up to now, Artie?"
she demanded.
14, I think. Maybe 15. And don't call me Artie in public, okay? It diminishes the authority a doctor needs to do his job right. But I can call you Artie when we're alone together and I'm kneeling at your feet in your pants are down around your ankles, Canterbury. His eyes flashed dangerously. Because if I can't, then maybe I'll have to wash my hair on Friday night instead of on Saturday morning. If you know what I mean.
Aw, shucks, Callie, sure, you can call me...
That, when we're somewhere nobody can hear us, it's just, when we're somewhere with lots of people.
His voice trailed off as he waved his free hand at the empty parking lot.
That's good, Artie.
She patted his hand.
Shall we go in together? As soon as Jason here he is.
The nerdy young assistant stood before them, his eyes fixed on Callie's beautiful cheekbones.
Okay, Dr. Nance is safe. There's not some singles woman in there with a restraining order against you.
You're sure? He inquired. Last Thursday at the Gaieties.
Yeah, I feel bad about that,
he said sadly.
But who would have expected Melissa Kriegel to be in a bedroom with somebody so early in the party?
Melissa?
Asked Callie indulgently.
Was she with Walter?
Yeah, oh yeah.
No, he said sardonically.
Dorothy.
Ah, she said, and put more meaning into that one single unbroken syllable than an entire stack of a psychology textbook.
Well then, if the coast is clear, let's go in. Are you coming, Jason?
He blushed at the question and shook his head from side to side.
No, Dr. Nance likes me to wait out front so that if anybody on the list shows up, I can warn him before they get within 50 feet of him.
Arthur nodded. Those 50 feet were important. He'd spent a whole night in a county lockup once because he'd thought 50-40 was the difference. 10 feet, the cops had told him belligerently, as they'd taken his belt and shoelaces and neckties and fingerprints. He tucked Callie's right hand under his left arm and led her inside. It was noisy. The kinds of noisy that only happening when you stuff 100 people into a room built for 75, give them all a couple of high-powered drinks, and let the band crank its amps to max.
These go to 11.
The air conditioners were probably raising a ruckus too, but who could hear them over the roar of the crowd? From the far side of the room, Isaac Stevens raised a hand to Arthur and picked his way through the press of humanity to him, pulling a beautiful young woman along with him by the hand.
Arthur,
he said softly,
just the man I've been looking for.
He crossed the last 10 feet and thrust out his hand. Hello, Callie.
Hello, Isaac.
She responded sedately, but her grip tightened on Arthur's forearm.
Arthur,
he said, taking a pull on his drink, and his speech was a little slurred, so it was as clear as the vodka in his glass that this wasn't his first drink of the night, or even his fifth, for that matter.
You know my daughter Irene, don't you?
Yes, of course, he said at once, inwardly glad that Isaac had told her who she was, because he really hadn't expected her, not in this setting, or that skin-tight emerald cocktail gown cut so low that it made a man want to punch his fist at the sky and shout, "Wee-haw!" After all, the last time he'd seen she was in a dimly lit restaurant on Peach Street, sitting in a booth at the back with Henry Archer. So close that it was hard to tell where one began and the other left off, her right hand under the table, but apparently in Henry's lap, from the contented yet anticipatory gleam in old Henry's good eye.
"And Callie,"
said Isaac, his expression simmering,
"I do believe I haven't seen you since the funeral. You're looking lovely tonight, my dear, as you always do, whatever the circumstances. May I present my daughter Irene? Irene, this is Mrs. Archer, whose husband, Henry, died recently."
Callie extended her hand to the blonde young thing and muttered,
"It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance."
Irene took a deep breath. Some breaths that made her large breasts look as though an anti-gravity beam had just rippled through them, and then took Callie's hand.
"It's very nice to meet you, Mrs. Archer. I'm sorry to hear about your husband."
"Why, that's very kind of you,"
she riposted. Watching all this, Arthur Nance quirked an eyebrow, but so inconspicuously that no one but he could see. Very interesting, he thought to himself. Old Henry's widow and old Henry's bereft mistress, pretending not to know each other, when to Arthur's certain knowledge the two had on more than one occasion shared the same bed in order to
Pleasure
the old man and make sure he never developed eyes for anyone else. Yes, very interesting, he thought to himself. I wonder what's raising. Besides that, I mean, as he subtly adjusted his trousers.
Georgia on my mind.
Hey everybody, this is the first regular reading of the new year. Hope you all still enjoy this stupidity. Big thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, particularly Break System, BSE, and Michael Maris. If you want to see your name up here, just head over to Patreon. Just throw me $1 a month. That's all it takes.